Excellent. Thank you for joining us all tonight. I appreciate it. We are now live. 2025, meet the candidates for the board. We're really glad to have. We have 4 candidates that are able to join us tonight. One has contacted me and said that they may not still be considered. I will by the end of this meeting. Hopefully, we'll have a better idea. And then one other candidate, Justin, I'm sorry, not Justin. It's Jonathan Farisha has indicated that they're starting a new job and they're unable to join us tonight, but they would still like to be considered, as far as I know. So I appreciate everybody's participation tonight. Like I said, this will just be an opportunity for us to get to know each of you a little better as we approach. Right now, we have 2 open seats on the board coming up, and we've already sent out the voting, simply voting to each family. Each family should have gotten access to that voting, and so tonight's our opportunity to get to know each of you more. Thanks for joining us. Can I have each of you just go around? I guess I'll just have each of you go around and say your relationship to the school, how long you've been here, and also why you want to be considered for the board, why you decided to apply, and what your background as it pertains to the position. Daisy, you're on the top box of my computer. I'm going to volunteer you.
Voluntold is always a good thing. Thanks, Adam. I appreciate it. I am Daisy. I have a son in 1st grade with Miss Laura's class, and we started in preschool with Miss Jill. So this makes our 3rd school year. Ooh, math. It's a good thing I'm not in school anymore. This makes our 3rd year with MPA, and I am just absolutely so pleased and blessed with the education that my little lunatic is getting. He's playing with Dad in the other room here, so just so much fun to see him growing and getting into this reading a little bit. Needs a little more work, but Miss Janelle and Miss Angie and everybody have just been so fantastic in working with him, and it just really called to me to able to reach out and give something back to the community. So my background, I'm not old enough to have history. That's a lie. I am in financial services. So I had worked at Charles Schwab and First Bank, so big, nice Colorado companies, working primarily in training and learning and development. So I do the adult side of education, which requires equally as much engagement as our children do, but in a very different manner, so that they don't feel like they're being children. And they're not, absolutely, right? None of us are. So it's definitely a passion to me. I love to learn. I love to be a part of things. I love to make sure that everybody has a voice. I love to put everybody's background and experiences into perspective and kind of build on all these things and bring everybody to a greater whole. I know that sounds kind of cheesy, but that's me. I am Miss Cheesy. So welcome. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Daisy. I appreciate it. Pete, you're up next on my screen.
Okay. So yeah, my name's Pete. My son is Kai. Kai is now in 2nd grade in Miss Jennifer's class. Prior to that, we started him in primary in Miss Heidi's class. So he had both preschool and kindergarten with Miss Heidi, and now we're in lower L with Miss Jennifer, and it's been lovely, and we've really appreciated all the support staff and the individual attention that we've received with, some challenges that our guy has faced in his learning. I, was really excited when we moved to Littleton that there's a Montessori charter school here. I went to a Montessori elementary school and I really loved it. I loved the open classroom. I loved the materials. I loved the way that you could kind of pursue our kind of individual interests and move at our own paces. So that is available to my son and in my community, I consider a real blessing. And that is what makes me, feel compelled to possibly serve on the committee, that I can contribute to this, wonderful asset that we have here in our community. Myself, I have a doctorate in sociology. with a specialization in disaster management. I was in the Peace Corps in the Philippines, and I witnessed this big disaster happen in the community while I was there. And that really kind of drove my passion for studying, learning in kind of disaster preparedness, response, and recovery. So I'm a professor of emergency services administration at Arapahoe Community College. My modal student is a handful of years into the fire service or law enforcement or EMS. And so we're training them to have kind of administrative and managerial skills to move up within their profession. So currently that's in like an online modality. I've had in the past, I've taught more in-person and younger students. So I've taught an array of modalities. I've also done lots of research. I have lots of published articles. I've won NSF grants. And I'm also a certified emergency manager, so I can bring kind of that emergency management perspective to the board and to MPA. So that's what I see, some skills that I could bring to this role, and I'd be eager to serve if given the opportunity.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Appreciate it. Matt, you're the next on my screen.
Yeah, hi, I'm Matt Stevens, and I don't want to disappoint you, but my story's not nearly as interesting as Daisy's or Pete's, so just going to preface that, so don't want to let anyone down. My youngest is in pre-K, my oldest is in first grade. So far, they're having a great experience. The reason I want to join the PTA is because I want to help out, right? I was pretty active, or excuse me, the board of directors. I was pretty active in the PTA when my daughter first joined the school, and then they rescheduled the meeting. However, I dropped off, but again, I'm just here to see how I can help out. And I think I have a lot of transferable skills from financial service industry that can possibly help run the school and make things better for everyone. So.
Excellent. Great. Thanks,
Yeah.
Matt. And Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. My name's Tom Coney. My son Max is currently in Alexa's class in third grade. We started him in primary with Miss D, so this is our fourth year, I suppose. It's kind of hard to imagine that it's been that long. So, I mean, he's obviously the main motivation. Him, and in the fall we'll have our second child starting with MPA as well. But the thing that actually, like my story, I guess, that has really motivated me to want to join the board and be a part of a bigger part of MPA, bigger than just the crossing guard on alternate days, is that as I was growing up, as all of us grow up, we don't really understand at the time that what we're confronted with are the things that we're seeing for the first time, right? So we are not necessarily equipped when we're kids to. You guys not hear me?
No, we can hear you. We're good.
Oh, okay. Not necessarily equipped at the time to sort of come up with a quick resolution to these kind of problems that we're coming up with. And for me specifically, academically, in a public school growing up, I didn't realize it at the time, but as I became an adult, it became very clear how underserved and underseen not only I was, but other children that were like me that had similar sort of situations, because it just wasn't really known at the time. It just wasn't really talked about as much as it is now. And that's the main reason why I really want to be a part of the board, is to try and support, especially such an amazing method for education as the Montessori method, and sort of give back to the MPA community, especially, which has just been so impactful on my family. That's the personal story, I guess. So professionally, I spent about the last 20 years doing global logistics and also import-export trade compliance, which I believe is helped me develop pretty strong strategic and managerial skills, but also um, very strong cross-cultural communication skills. There's just been a lot of, in that industry, especially, there's a lot of communication between um, myself and other people in different countries and different government agencies and so on and so forth. So um, that has really kind of helped in that regard. I've led different teams as supervisor or manager, most recently in that regard as director of global logistics for an oil well service company. And the most recent thing, actually, it's so recent that it hasn't made it onto my resume yet. I currently have stepped into a role as the chief technology officer for a software startup that is focused mainly on helping our user base foster positivity and mindfulness in their daily lives. So between those two things, really just, especially with the managerial skills and the communication skills, I also think that having this sort of mindfulness and positivity mission that I'm currently sort of involved in, I think that's will end up being very beneficial to the MPA community and the board.
Excellent. Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it.
Sure.
And so this is an opportunity for board members and members of the community we're up to, I think, 15 people on YouTube, but it's an opportunity for everybody to ask questions of you all. I'm happy to sort of to start off with a question here. Can you each tell me one thing that you think the school is doing really well, and then one thing that you would sort of like to work on while you're on the board, an individual project that you'd like to move forward while you're on the board? I'm going to go in reverse order, actually. The last time so Tom?
Sure. I kind of saw that coming. So I think that MPA does a tremendous job of sort of pushing the Montessori method and putting the child first. I can't say that there's any sort of specific thing that I think that MPA is lacking that somehow I will, help to fill, right? But what I can say is that my goal would be to continue to support those policies, those processes that have made MPA so great and continue to make it so great in the future.
Great, thank you. And you guys can really just jump in. I'm not a teacher.
I think I was it? Yeah, I think I'm next. So I'll jump in. I love the community that MPA has. Anytime you walk into the school or you go to any function or event, there's just a vibrant community that the students just come to life and you can feel it. And it's a really lovely thing. I've visited our local non-charter school, and it's not there. It's not there in that same way. So that's something that I really love and admire about this school. Something that I think that I could bring would be reviewing the emergency management and preparedness program, looking at what it is, looking at the emergency operations plan, looking at the partnerships, looking at the systems of drills and exercises and reviewing those, and seeing areas of strength and weakness and areas for improvement. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm a maximalist in this area, saying that we need more drills, we need to, ramp all of this up. That's not what I'm necessarily saying at all. I'm more saying let's review it and see, what could be improved upon.
Thank you.
All right, well, I will hop in. One thing I love, Pete, I'm right with you, that community, the sense of everybody being there for everybody else. And going in for glow night and the PE nights and all the fun activities from Dewey's Dash. That was so much fun to just engage with all the other parents and see everybody around and just everybody having a great time and our kids doing all the crazy things. So yeah, I absolutely love the community. One thing that I would like to work on for myself would be to see where we can increase the engagement, right, and get some better or different ways of communicating out into the universe, into the group. I used to do communications at my old job. We had a women's information network. It was one of our employee resource groups and was part of that, and they handled the communications for the year. And we just had a great time building up the newsletters and building up the engagement with the in-person events, all that kind of thing. So that would be something that I would love to support and help develop a little bit further.
Great.
Yeah, I would have to say one thing I like about Montessori Peaks is the professionalism of the teachers. I was really blown away about how they care about my children, and I really, really appreciate that. Two things I would like to work on, if elected to the board. I'd like to see how I could accelerate the playground enhancements. And I also would like to take a deep dive into the school lunch programs and see if that can be enhanced in any manner.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm happy to open this up. I have one question that I have to ask. Any of you feel like you are willing and able to take on the technology side of the board? That's been my job, running the videos. It's not that hard. I'm happy to train you up, but somebody's going to have to do this. And as far as I can tell, nobody else is vying for the position.
Well, I definitely do not have the fancy boom mic, but I do have dual monitors set up in broadcasting software. So
that's about all you need, honestly.
Love it.
Yeah, I can also help out. I'm on Zoom calls all day long. So yes, let me know if you need a replacement.
Okay, good. Thank you. Great. Who has questions?
Yeah, I'll jump into one. Thanks, everybody. Great to meet you here on Zoom. Really appreciate your interest in the board and obviously part of the community. So thanks very much for your time this evening. Real quick, so as part of the board, we debate a lot of things, a lot of longer term planning for the school. And a lot of times that involves coalescing ideas and coming up with an outcome from a lot of different opinions and viewpoints. So, part of that is building consensus. We'd love to hear each of your views on how you would handle a disagreement among factions of the board or individuals, and how you would help to build a consensus and work towards a positive outcome.
Great question. Especially, it's honestly not to diminish any conflict, but it's easy in a situation like this where everybody has the same goal. And that's what, for myself, it's all about reminding everybody that we are working towards the same goal. We may have different ways to do it, and maybe we need to bring in pieces and parts and kind of put everything together, like you said, coalesce. But absolutely, it's that guiding star, making sure that we're kind of all headed towards that same direction.
I guess I'll go next. I would bring a spirit of understanding and pragmatism. Like, what is the goal here? What are we working towards? Where are the areas of disagreement? Really avoiding, at the current moment, it's easy to project onto anything kind of political divides, all these divides, and project that onto it, and see team red and team blue, and that's what you're fighting for, more turf for your team. I avoid that very strongly, and instead see what is the issue, where are the areas of disagreement, where can we build bridges and pragmatically work towards a solution to come out with the best outcome for everyone involved here.
Yeah, I think I'll go next. I would have to echo that as well. I think the key to resolving conflicts, obviously, is just maintaining your shared focus of the common goal, right? All of the board members would, I mean, I would assume, are all there for the same reason, right? They all want to support the school. They all want to do the best they can to do that. I don't. I think that focusing on what the common goal is and trying to remove any sort of feelings of defensiveness or having it any sort of conflict come up out of some sort of personal issues or anything that might sort of cloud what we're trying to accomplish. Removing those things and trying to refocus on what we're trying to do and why, and have a very respectful and very respectful conversation about where we're coming from, where each side is coming from, and how those two sides can come together in the middle and create meet the common goal they're trying to create.
Or was that everyone? Are you looking for more questions, Adam?
I believe that's everything. I'm trying to look at the chat and if I'm covering all my bases. I
Oh,
was
you're
not
good. I have a question if you
Yeah,
do. I just
please.
wasn't sure if I didn't
Still-
want to jump in front of anyone. Well, I echo Ted. Thank you all for putting yourselves in the hot seat. I remember last year when I was invited to be a part of this, I was like, wait, I'm sorry. You want what? So really appreciate you all just stepping up and being willing to give yourself to the community in this way. One thing I've learned in the last year is that the board often calls for creative thinking and really willingness to take on new ideas. And, so if an idea comes up somehow, it often can become your idea to kind of push forward. It's a working board as opposed to just kind of sharing your opinion and, and being able to walk away. And so I was wondering if you all, with your wonderful backgrounds could share a time, where you had to solve a problem or improve something in your workplace or school or volunteer experience, and what was your role in making that happen and what did you learn from that process?
Are we frozen, or is this just a
Nope.
pause in the conversation?
I think it's Christine froze just a little bit there, but yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, did you get the question?
I think we
I did. I got the question.
Okay,
I'll
great.
lead here.
Sorry about that.
No worries at all. So I've launched 2 degree programs, and kind of those started with kind of a vague idea of what the curriculum looks like. And then I, at my first institution, kind of co-developed the classes. At my current institution, largely developed them from scratch. So it's starting with just a vague outline and objectives and building entire kind of lectures and classes and doing assessment of how all of that works. And, in the process of first semester, some stuff works, some doesn't. And there's a kind of continuous, I take to it a continuous improvement approach of every semester come back to these classes, what worked, what didn't. Creatively, what would be a more dynamic way of delivering this content and engaging students in it? And that involves like looking at what other folks have done, drawing from my own kind of, again, creativity and ideas of how I can develop an assignment, how I can assess this, doing an exercise. So it's a lot of this continuous improvement in a spirit of thinking critically and drawing from outside sources to make things better. That's been a big part of my job and the roles I've served in.
Who's next?
Yeah, I'll
All
jump
right.
in.
Go for it, Tom.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, there have been many opportunities, especially when dealing with logistics, the movement of cargo, internationally, domestically, so many different instances or opportunities for something to go wrong. I think one of the more recent examples that I have actually has to do with software development. I think that one of the things that I do specifically as a software developer is to see what the problem is and how we can creatively solve that problem. And that goes, I mean, it sounds like, and sometimes it starts out as a very simple process. Here's the problem, and we need the solution. But I think as you gain more experience and continue to work on resolutions to these problems, you understand that you have to get information from all of the different stakeholders, the people that are using the software, the people that are creating the software, the people that are paying for it, and really maintain that sort of team mentality to make sure that everybody's getting what they need out of that resolution. It's not always just, this is the problem and we're trying to solve that. We're trying to solve it so that everyone feels like they're involved and seen.
Thank you. Daisy, would you want to go? Or
Sure. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not having luck hearing Tom. It's pretty sad.
Interesting. Sorry.
Technology,
Yeah,
right?
you're not missing anything.
Oh, stop. Not even possible. All right. Well, at work, we were using several outdated, well, they weren't outdated at the time. I'll be nice. Several very old, there's no other nice way to say it, several old technologies. One of them went through an upgrade and they started a Google, the graphic user interface, GUI, sorry, not Google, goodness. And so we needed to redo the entire training. So this was something that was a priority, but at the same time, it wasn't like conveyed correctly that it was a huge priority, but it was because we had this new system we had to teach people on. And I saw that this was an issue and it needed to be done, and I had the time. So I stepped up. I said to my director, let me take this on. I have this idea. I want to bring in some of the people using this system and have them kind of facilitate this upgrade of the training program and find out the ways to, how do we get people used to using the new system? What ways can we practice it? What are the important things that they need to know about this? Went through a several week process with the group, trying to get them involved and engaged. They weren't as engaged as I would have hoped. This was supposed to be kind of a bonus role for them. But we had 2 or 3 that were really super involved, and they gave me a lot of material. At the end of that, I went ahead and put everything together. We ended up with a new training that still fit within the same time frame. In the business world, right, you can't take more time because then everybody's heads are going to explode and it just turns out bad. So working within our very, very solid constraints of no time, no budget, right, we just had to create everything using our salaries and access to the materials we had. So we went ahead and put that all together. What I had learned through it was definitely making sure to keep those open lines of communication. So making sure I was able to accurately convey, no, this really is a huge priority. We've got a new system. We can kind of wiggle our way through it with the old training and the new, and but we really kind of need to upgrade this. So I was able to better develop myself as a way to communicate and make sure that the priorities were really established. It turned out to be a great training. I'm just going to modestly say I got to sit in on the first class presentation of it and get their feedback. And again, as Pete said, right, you go through, you make your iterations, you develop, you continually improve. So it was great.
Hey, Adam, I'm going to volunteer my time back to the group so we can hear more of their experiences.
Great. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. There is a question in the chat right here. As a PTA member, I've really valued the progress we made this year in building strong partnership with the board, especially around community-focused projects like the back-to-school, social, and playground improvements. With the PTA president stepping down, how do you envision your role as a board member in continuing that collaboration and supporting a unified approach between the PTA and the board?
I think everyone has different roles and different silos, but it's all about understanding, again, what everybody is doing and making sure that we're all working towards those same outcomes and the same goals, right? We got to get our kids educated. We all love, obviously, MPA and the work that the teachers are doing, and just making sure, sorry, that's my dog, if you can hear him, making sure that we can get everybody on that same path. So it is, what are you doing? I would be the curious one to say, what is it that you're up to? I want to know, right? How can we help? What support do you need? What can I do? So that would be my thought.
Great. Oh, sorry, Brian, I just muted you. You were coming through on our side.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that there has to be a continued understanding of the common goal, right? Again, the common goal between not just the board and the school, not just the PTA and the board, but all of the stakeholders that are involved in raising the next generation of leaders, right? That's what we're all trying to do. That's what the staff is trying to do. That is what I believe all of us that are here running for the board are passionate about. And the way to do that is to continue to maintain a very strong community, a very strong partnership between the school, PTA, and the board.
Thank you. Pete or Matt, any thoughts on that?
Sure. I mean, there's going to be a learning curve here for myself, and I think for anyone else kind of in this new role, is learning what the issues and the kind of the action items are and how those relate to the PTA. So that's going to be a natural part of it, is learning the roles and what the issues are. I would approach that with the spirit that all of us are volunteering our time and our energy in service to MPA, and to be collaborative in that and listening to them, and collaboratively problem solving and working towards these issues and bettering MPA.
Thank you. Matt, anything to add?
No, again, I'm just going to volunteer my time back so we can hear others.
Great. Any other questions?
Adam, I have, go ahead, Robin. All right, I actually have two questions for our candidates, and I'll just bring them both now so that way it'll go a little bit quicker. So my first question is, it's usually our first instinct when we're trying to make changes to add a bunch of new things. So I'm curious if there's anything for each of you that you feel like maybe is archaic, or that we're focusing a lot of time and we're not getting enough benefit out of, either in relation to like MPA, or just even maybe something you've seen in your own careers where taking away was actually the better option versus adding and layering. So that's my first question. And then my second question is, every time that you're getting together as a board, the board meeting should really, I guess, have a purpose. And we really want to be thinking about, like, what are we doing, of course, but also why are we doing it? And I'm curious how you guys would approach maybe avoiding just kind of going through the motions and stamping off like, okay, check, 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 we've done the meeting, everybody said good, we're going. So how do you really just kind of maybe foster relationships among each other, and then also between the board and the community? And those were both really long questions, so I apologize.
Well, I'll start with the issue on, like, it's a natural tendency to, start a bunch of new things. And I can understand that. And I'm imagine that the board already has plenty on its plate and plenty that needs to be done. And a new member bringing in a whole new agenda, that could be frustrating and possibly counterproductive. So I appreciate the perspective there. Like I say, the thing that I think that I could really bring is this emergency management perspective, reviewing the emergency management plan. And it's not, let's start up all this new stuff. It's, what is the plan? What does it look like? What are the areas for revision and improvement there? And not necessarily saying, let's add another 5 drills that will disrupt the classes and stress out the teachers and the students and upset everything. Not like that at all. What is the area for professionalization and revision for tweaks and improvement, not adding on a whole kind of new layer to the cake on top of all the stuff that already needs to be done. That's how I would kind of answer that first part. And I'm sure time and energy is scarce, and that more is not necessarily better. How to foster relationships between the school and community. Was that the second part? Did I have that right?
Between the board members themselves, so how will you contribute to that? Because it is a pretty tight community. You're together every month, you're working on projects. So there's the board itself, and then we have the board and the PTA, the board and the school community. So I guess really, how would you promote or contribute to fostering positive relationships in those scenarios?
Yeah, I mean, I'd start with the board is it's a gradual process of taking my time to get to know the other folks, get to know what the role is. Certainly want to be like contributing to it, but there's a kind of socialization and process of like gaining trust, learning the role, and I would kind of be gradual with that. And similar kind of learning what the relationship between the board and the PTA looks like, and observing and learning and like kind of gaining trust. I think that that's a gradual process, and it happens with time and by showing that you're a committed person who's pragmatic and working towards mutual goals. That would be kind of the spirit I would bring to that.
Thanks, Pete. So I would, yeah, my instinct honestly first is not to add things, because I think I've seen that just become such a disaster all the time of, let's do this. It's like, but we're doing this that's similar to it. So my first instinct is actually to take analysis, right? When we're in the learning environment, it is analyze. Where are we right now? What is going on? How does it look right now? What's working with what is happening now? What isn't working, right? There's a start, stop, continue exercise. So those are always a lot of fun, let's keep going with this, this really isn't serving us. So for me, my first instinct is absolutely to go ahead and try and analyze and figure out where we are. What is it? So not to jump in and add things. I say this all the time. I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I am a voice, and everybody has a voice in the room, and we all have something to contribute and to learn from. As far as fostering relationships, I have a big smile because that's like my fun thing to do. I love to get to know people and find out what your interests are and how your kids are doing in this situation. I can talk about kids. This is so cool, right? I can't really do that at work all the time. So I love to find out how your kids are doing and what they're up to and all the good stuff. Relationships for me come a little bit easier, which is great. When you're talking a little bit more broader between like the board and the community and the PTA, it is still for me building up a one-on-one relationship. So going to somebody and trying to make a connection. People laugh at me all the time because I sit there and I'm like, okay, and your name is, and then I'll like literally try and focus and do that exercise where you're like, I'm going to remember your name based on what you told me here. And then the next time I see you, I can bring that up and kind of come back to it. It takes a lot of effort, and it's just the way that I work because I want to really show and demonstrate to people that they are valued, they're important, and I care about them. So that's my little secret. I've spilled it now, so you can all steal my secret as well and build up those relationships by making a concerted effort. So
Yeah, so I guess my perspective as far as not adding things, not doing more to make something better. There have been a lot of opportunities professionally, especially where um, if you take software development for an example, if you're stepping into somebody else's code base, it can be very, very tempting to say, all this stuff is good and it's doing the thing, but what if we put another button here or another drop down over here, or what if we make it do something else that's really cool, and what I've found is that ends up just gumming up the works. Um, Nothing runs efficiently when it's overloaded. That goes for software, it goes for machines, it goes for people, it goes for groups of people. So I think it's important to look at how it's currently running, and if there's any bloat that needs to be removed, do so, and keep the process streamlined and moving efficiently. Um, as far as fostering relationships, and sort of avoiding cruise control during the board meetings. As far as relationships are concerned, I mean, I know many people. I've met many people at the school. Um, I would have to sort of agree with what Pete's answer was, especially like it's sort of hard to say exactly what I would do without having been in the position already. But I think that it does take a gradual approach, and building, first of all, building those relationships between yourself and your other board members, but also understanding which relationships to focus on and build right away, be they with the PTA, with the staff, or any of the parents that are involved. So yeah, that's my answer.
Robin, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. It is two-part. I'll try to make it short. It's like a CMAS test.
Okay.
This is exciting for everyone. That this obviously comes from my perspective, and thanks everyone for being here. I've been in the hot seat before too, and I know how it is, but we really appreciate your time here and being willing to, help with the board. So this is something that that would impact, our staff a lot, is it is two parts, so you can decide how you want to answer this. But first of all, I taught it at school where my kids went, and I moved up into different roles, and separating those two roles can be very difficult. And I'm wondering, first of all, how you would compartmentalize that, because you really have to, right? It can be very difficult, and you have parents approaching you, there's all kinds of things that go on. And so it's being able to take off that parent hat when you're speaking as a board member, right? But the other thing, and I'm sorry, it is two-part, but I figure, do you want me to just ask this one, Adam, and the other one's
We can start with
different.
the first one. Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause I feel like otherwise it's like a bad CMAS test,
I think that is a hard thing to do, right? Is to sit there and want the best for your student, and then to have to separate it out and say, but the reality is, so at my former role, it was definitely leading people. I would have people that were very close to me and very friendly, someone who would give me gifts, and then this person fell into an attendance problem. And that was many years ago. And I had to really separate, yeah, you know, we can text and be on the side and have this fun, but at the same time, you're not meeting the expectations of work. And I have to really separate on that. So I've had that experience of kind of where do you draw that line and how do you keep it separate? And it is hard, but you're right, it is necessary. You can't let all the fun, warm, cozy feelings interfere with the actual business side. And it's not that it can't influence, but it can't be the only thing. So it is a hard place to navigate. And I would certainly expect to have some great guidance from the fellow members of the board of directors.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think it is as humans, we're sort of geared to sort of immediately lead with our hearts, especially when it has to do with something as important as not only our children but the children of the school, right? As a parent to one MPA student and soon to be two, obviously I'm very emotionally invested in my child's success and their experience as students at MPA. But I think we would have to realize that ensuring that one or two children are successful is no way to ensure that all of the children are successful. I think that's the reason why we chose the MPA or the Montessori method, because it is about each individual student. And I think the it's obviously difficult to consider that you would have to separate yourself from being a parent and a board member, but it is what has to be done in order to be successful as a school, as a board, as a community.
Yeah, and I'll kind of echo the previous answer. You know, and I think I'm pretty good at, you know, there's lots of times in our lives where we put on one hat and take it off and put on another hat, and that's part of being a professional and in all sorts of roles that we have in our lives. And you know, when I'm in the parent role and going to the school, you know, I'm thinking of advocating for my kid. I'm thinking from the perspective of my kid's unique challenges and the way that you know, the experience is or is not meeting those, and how do I advocate for my child to better that, the areas of struggle for him. But that's just that's a very different hat to be wearing than putting on the one of thinking of the institution as a whole, the administration and management of that school and its challenges. And I would approach that role in that I love the school and I love its role in the community, and that's what I'm advocating for. And certainly, you know, my child is downstream from this, but I would really, you know, make a concerted effort to be thinking from the perspective of the institution as a whole, as in the role of the MPA board member.
Robin, do you want to?
Yeah. Okay. So thanks for giving me the floor for a little bit. So what, you know, I came from neighborhood schools. And so before I decided to do a switch to charters, I researched the role of boards because I was worried about that actually. Just, you know, you hear stories about boards that are running well and they're healthy and ones that aren't. And it was a concern, you know, and it was lovely when I met everyone because this board does run very efficiently and it was very healthy, at least it has been in my experience. I would like to know what your perception is of the board's role in supporting, well, it's a board member and the board's relationship to the school administration and its role in supporting operations. Because operations is very different than like overseeing the direction of the school. Did that make sense?
And you will get board training so that you know exactly what the right answer is.
Well,
so-
yeah. Yeah, I just would like to know, when you're obviously applying for this position, what you're thinking the board's, what your role will be and what kind of impact you can have and what areas of the school you would be anticipating you would have direct impact on. Yeah, we don't expect you to be like an expert on actual board relations.
I guess
Yes.
again, there's a learning curve that would be a part of this for me. So, but I see it as advocating for the larger mission of the institution. That a charter school, a neighborhood school doesn't have these boards, and this board is to oversee the larger mission of the institution and see that that mission is being like carried out in the operations, but we are not doing the operations. That is the people running the school do the operations. And I see this somewhat as analogous to, I'm the head of a program at a community college, and I have an advisory board, and I host meetings of the advisory board. And it's a little bit different where I'm the one who I bring forth the issues to the advisory board, and I let them chime in and give some feedback. Where I think that the board of directors is a bit more than that, where they're have a bit more stake in it than just chiming in and saying, well, you might want to think about this. Where they're supposed to be advocating for the larger mission of the school and see that that's being accomplished. That's how I understand it at this point. But I'm really, I would see learning this role and learning that relationship as being part of the process.
Yeah, to me, just off the top of my head, I would just say support. Board of directors, yes, there's some guidance, some helm, but absolutely when it comes to the day-to-day operations, that's definitely far outside to me. Again, like the scope of somebody who's more concerned about that broader vision and direction. So yeah, the day-to-day operations, I would say, what's needed to support. Oh, we, according to my son, oh, the toilet doesn't work. I'm just kidding. He just loves toilets, and that's his thing. So, that to me would be an operational thing. And support, yes, let's go. I have a great plumber on call. Let's go call him up. But, absolutely with Pete, of course, right? Learning curve and figuring out exactly what that does encompass for sure.
Yeah, so I was trying to figure out a way to answer this uh, in a sort of similar way, but uh, I think my goal, should I end up joining the board, is very much the same. Um, Support, I think, is the biggest thing that we could offer. Supporting the staff and promoting the policies that are already in place, that put students at the center, and strengthening connection between family and school leadership. I think those are the biggest things. I am certainly not an educational professional, but uh, I believe that as a board member, you are beholden to support those professionals that are there to provide an education for your children. And that's what I would plan to do.
Excellent.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. We're just about at time, and we've got to sort of clear you guys out. We're going to sort of be in here for our next our actual board meeting. It will be streamed if you want to watch it. It's on our YouTube channel. I appreciate everybody's participation tonight. Just a reminder, if we had some people join us, we had some people join us late. We have heard from one candidate. It was Sarah Claggett, who said that she was going to withdraw her nomination or her candidacy from the board. And then we had the other candidate that was unable to join us tonight is, I'm sorry, I just had this up too. It was Jonathan Farisha who's indicated that he would still like to be considered. He just started a new job and was unable to join the stream tonight. His materials are up on the page on the school website, as are all these candidates. And voting will be open for the next couple weeks, and we hope everybody in the school community is able to vote for these candidates. And we really appreciate everybody's thoughtful answers and your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank
Adam.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you and good night.
And then the rest of the board, we will be back in here. So feel free to